Hey everyone, it's Heather Nichols for Tailored Expressions. Today I'm sharing a pair of mini slim cards that are perfect for sending fantastic birthday wishes. It all starts with the fan favorite layering stencil set. This stencil set has 6 layers to create an amazing multicolored design. I'll also be using the coordinating fan favorite 3D embossing folder, the fantastic birthday stamp set and coordinating dies, and the mini slim layer Stacklets die collection. For ink colors, I'm using Cookie Monster, Blue Raspberry, Sour Gummy, Guava, Cherry Pop, and Sugar Cube. I'll also be using VersaMark ink. I'm using blender brushes and pixie spray, TE's Teal embossing pad kit, gold sparkle embossing powder, the powder tool and a heat tool, glitter drops in gold, red, and teal, bits and pieces glossy white rhinestones, Dr. P.H. Martin's bleed proof white ink, chocolate truffle liquid watercolor, and a water brush, and finally multimedia matte and thin foam adhesive. Let's start off with the stenciling. Like I mentioned, the fan favorite layering stencil set has 6 layers. On the bottom of the stencil, there is a code with a -1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. This is the suggested order to stencil the design. I'll be holding my stencils in place with pixie spray. I'm using a 6x6 piece of toffee cardstock, and I'm going to start with stencil layer number 1. I'm stenciling this first layer with Guava ink using my blender brushes. I'll be using my blender brushes to apply the ink through the stencil using a circular motion, going both in a clockwise and counterclockwise direction. I'm making sure to fill in all of the openings, including the square guides on the sides of the stencil. When I'm done, I'll peel off that first stencil layer, and then we'll start layer number 2. I'm lining that stencil up with those square guides stenciled on the sides of the design. I'm repeating the steps to add color to layer 2, 3, 4, and 5, stenciling with Cherry Pop, Cookie Monster, Sour Gummy, and Blue Raspberry. For layer number 6, I'm using Sugar Cube ink. Sugar Cube is a pigment ink and has a more paint-like consistency. To get a nice layer of coverage, I'm applying the ink through the stencil with a sponge dauber. When I'm done applying the Sugar Cube ink, I'll remove the stencil to reveal the completed and colorful design. I added splatters to the stencil design using chocolate truffle liquid watercolor and Dr. P.H. Martin's bleed proof white ink. I picked up the color on a water brush and then tapped the brush over my finger to add the splatters. Next, I'm using the fan favorite 3D embossing folder to emboss the stencil design. The sandwich on my big shot is I'm using the platform, I'm using the thin layer from the embossing pad kit, and then I'll use one of the cutting plates on top of the embossing folder. Your die cut machine may have a different sandwich for using a 3D embossing folder. I spritzed a bit of water on the back of my stencil design. This is going to help the cardstock emboss easier. Then you'll want to line up your panel inside the embossing folder. It's very easy to line up the design with the embossing folder. Make sure the fold of the embossing folder is going through your die cut machine first, and then you'll lay the cutting plate on top of the embossing folder and send it through your die cut machine. Remove the stenciled panel from the embossing folder and check out that gorgeous dimensional design. I cut out 2 panels from my stenciled panel to use for 2 mini slim cards. One panel measures 3.5 by 5.5 inches, and the other panel measures 2.5 inches by 5.5 inches. Next, I chose several sentiments from the fantastic birthday stamp set to emboss for my projects. I set up the stamps in my mini MISTI, treated my cardstock with the powder tool, and then I stamped the sentiments with VersaMark ink. I poured gold sparkle embossing powder over the sentiments and then used my heat tool to melt the embossing powder until it was nice and shiny. I cut out the sentiments with the coordinating dies. I cut 2 panels from Poblano Pepper cardstock using the second largest die from the Mini Slim Layer Stacklets die collection to use behind my stenciled panels. Now it's time to put these cards together. For each card, I adhered the Poblano Pepper panel to a Sugar Cube Mini Slim card base. And I added the embossed panels using thin foam adhesive. Next I added the sentiments, again using thin foam adhesive. And then for a touch of sparkle, I added gold, red, and teal glitter drops to the center of the circular fan designs. I adhered the glitter drops in place using multimedia matte. Off camera, I added a few glossy white rhinestones scattered throughout each card design for a finishing touch. These birthday cards are done, and here's a closer look at each one. They're the perfect way to send fantastic birthday wishes to the special people in your life. You can find the supplies to create these cards in the Tailored Expressions web store at tailoredexpressions.com. Thanks so much for joining me today, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our crafty videos.